Chris Young did his Christmas shopping early this year, signing Nathan Eovaldi to a 3-year deal back with the Rangers. Talk about why it's so important for the Rangers to bring back their ace, what it means now that they've signed him, and what they do next. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers, the first and best daily Rangers podcast. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan covering this team for 11 seasons, including all 6 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, on today's show, we're breaking down the Nathan Eovaldi re-signing, what it means for this team, what they're doing next, and why, even though it's a lot of money, it might end up looking like a bargain. Before we get into all of that, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Now, the news of the night, as of, 10 minutes before I started recording this show, Nathan Eovaldi is coming back to the Rangers. 3 years, $75 million. As of this recording, I have not seen any news about any opt-outs or deferrals or player options or anything like that at the moment. It is still pending physical at this moment, although I don't think that a physical with your own player is going to reveal anything that the Rangers didn't already know. So this thing is pretty much locked and loaded. And the sticker shock of 3 years, $75 million. I do want to go back to something I said, actually, I think multiple times on this show over the last couple weeks. I thought the max deal that Eovaldi could get was 3 years, $75 million, which is roughly the equivalent of Sonny Gray's deal with the St. Louis Cardinals. And lo and behold, here I am, being right again. And 3 years, 75, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money for a guy heading into his age 35 season who, before he came to Texas, there were a lot of concerns about his durability. You may just look at, he had 3.80 ERA and 29 starts this year, but he led the team in innings. He was healthy for the whole year. He was much, much better in the first half when the Rangers were actually in contention, and less so when the Rangers were basically out of it. But this is their ace. This is the guy on the hill when the Rangers claimed their first World Series title. This is a guy who the Rangers needed for his leadership, for the depth that he brings to this rotation, for the strikeout ability, for the big game ability. The Rangers are talking about at the winter meetings today about, we need a back-end starter and some back-end bullpen guys. No, they needed another ace alongside Jacob deGrom. They needed another guy you could trust in a playoff series. They needed a guy who you can throw out there. So game 1 is Jacob deGrom, great. But who's behind him? Tyler Mahle is your game 2 starter? John Gray is your game 2 starter? Kumar Rocker is your game 2 starter? It's fine, but not ideal. Having a guy who's battle-tested, battle-worn, and all of those cliches are very true about Nate Eovaldi. I kind of scoffed and, rolled my eyes at them before he came to Texas, but seeing him in Texas these last 2 years, the way he steps up in those big moments, time after time with Texas, they have needed him so badly. He has provided so much for them, and the Rangers just frankly couldn't really afford to go elsewhere, especially after the other pitching target that they were in on signed elsewhere. The left-handed pitcher Max Fried signing a 7-year deal with the Yankees. 7 years worth an average of $27.25 million. That was, 8 years, $218 million. About 5 to 10 minutes before Eovaldi signed. The Rangers were one of the teams that were in on Max Fried before he ended up signing with the Yankees. This was according to Joel Sherman. The Rangers and the Red Sox were the other teams trying late to sign Fried before the Yankees signed him. I really think that, especially with Max Fried's deal having a full no-trade clause, his no opt-outs, no deferrals, one of the most expensive pitching contracts in free agent history. I mean, 7 years for a guy who has missed a decent chunk of time the last couple of years. Still 31 years old, still a guy with multiple top 5 Cy Young finishes. A guy who's won multiple Gold Gloves, has been an All-Star 2 different seasons. He's been very, very good. But would you rather have Nathan Eovaldi for the next 3 years at $25 million a year, or would you rather have Max Fried for the next 8 years at $27.25 million a year? I think I'd take the Nate Eovaldi deal. I don't think it's particularly close. I was having this discussion with Grant Schiller just honestly, I think on Saturday. It was not that long ago. I was saying that I was more in on Eovaldi than I was on Fried because I was projecting both these guys to get more than some of the other projections because all the tea leaves have been saying there's going to be a lot of money spent. And especially once the Juan Soto deal went down. I talked about it on Monday's show that there were going to be a lot of teams desperate to pivot, to show their fan base, hey, we're serious. We are very serious about contending, even though we didn't get Juan Soto. And obviously the New York Yankees are first and foremost in that. That's why Max Fried got over $200 million. When most of the projections that I was seeing before the offseason really got going were around $150 million, maybe $160 at the most. And this just blows that out of the water. Heck, most of the Eovaldi projections, the most expensive one was SpotTrack at 2 years, $25 million a pop for $50 million total. There were others that had him around 2 years, $42 million. I think The Athletic had him at 2 years, $46 million. This is a lot more, and maybe there is some. I'm assuming there's going to be some deferred money, even though that's what the Rangers don't usually like to do. But I think that is what the Rangers are going to decide to do with the questions about the TV money. But the main thing with the whole TV money nonsense, I talked so much about it on this morning show. The best thing about this is that it didn't stop them. It seemed like it was going to. It was talk like, I don't know about the Rangers. We don't know if we're really going to spend all that much because we don't know how much we're getting from the TV deal. And this shows that, okay, they are going to spend. Ray did get pissed off at his team being bad this past year. He did see the mistake of not bringing back one World Series hero pitcher because they didn't know exactly what the finances were going to be like in Jordan Montgomery. I was more okay with that at the time than I would have been if Nathan Eovaldi went elsewhere, even with what Jordan Montgomery's season looked like. No matter what Eovaldi's season looks like next year, I mean, having this guy on the team, letting him walk too after this team missed out on the playoffs and after they are, theoretically, hopefully going to have a fully healthy Jacob deGrom, a fully healthy in their prime Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, also Wyatt Langford stepping into his hopefully, stardom, if not superstardom, and hopefully a healthier season from some of the other guys that missed out on big chunks of this year in Cody Bradford, in Josh Young, in Evan Carter. You had to have one more guy, and if you let your guy, who everyone knew was your guy, who you talked all offseason long about how we need to bring back Nathan Eovaldi. We want him back so badly. This is priority one. And they got it done. That was the main thing. They got their number one priority done. Again, that's 3 out of 4 off seasons. 3 out of the last 4 off seasons, they have gotten their priority number one done. And actually, 2 out of the last 3 off seasons, not talking about this one, but 2 out of the last 3, the Rangers probably got their number 1, 2, and maybe even 3 priorities done. Because I think Seager was priority number 1 in 2021 that winter. Then Semien, priority number 2. Heck, I think John Gray was probably priority number 3 that winter. And then heading into after 2022, when the Rangers still disappointed, priority number 1, I think, was definitely bringing Bruce Bochy out of retirement. Then priority 2, signing Jacob deGrom. Then priority 3 is more of a pivot, but it ended up eventually bring in Nathan Eovaldi the first time. And look how well all those moves worked out. Last year, the Rangers did not have a splashy offseason, did not, sign a big free agent, didn't sign really much of anybody to, I don't think they really signed, I actually don't think they signed anybody to a multi-year deal. I think there were some one-and-ones, like Dave Robertson's deal, that had a mutual option, but if my memory is remembering correctly, I don't think anyone was signed to a multi-year deal, let alone anywhere near this kind of money for Nathan Eovaldi. But this guy is so important to this team, and it puts this rotation in such a better spot. But the Rangers aren't done, and they might not be done with starting pitching. Coming up, we'll talk about what Roki Sasaki's agent said today that makes me think, oh boy, this may just be the start of another incredible winter for the Texas Rangers. Talk about all that and more right after this. This show is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. They got all kinds of odds on the NFL, and they've got 2025 World Series odds. Right now, they have not updated the Rangers odds in the last 5 minutes with them signing Nathan Eovaldi. So they are sitting not as pretty as they should be as the 14th favorite to win the 2025 World Series at plus 3,300, tied with the Cubs, tied with the Tigers, behind the Red Sox and the Mariners and the Rays. What? That's absolutely crazy. Go check out all these different lines. They've also got NBA stuff that you can bet on, NHL stuff you can bet on. Go check it all out at FanDuel.com to join the day. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Now, the Rangers got their guy back in Nathan Eovaldi. 3 years, $75 million. And not only is he going to provide depth to this rotation, but again, that top end, right now, this is what I project the Rangers' opening day rotation will look like. Jacob deGrom starting opening day, Nathan Eovaldi, Kumar Rocker at the 3, Tyler Mahle at the 4, Cody Bradford at the 5, and then you've got 3 different backup starters to, if somebody gets hurt, if something happens to the rotation, those are your 5. Bradford's at the very end of that. Then you have John Gray, you have Jack Leiter, and you have Dane Dunning. Plus, the Rangers also added Adrian Hauser as a probably AAA depth at this point. Maybe the Rangers end up moving Cody Bradford to a long relief role in the pen or just some other role in the pen. I would hate that. I'd love what Cody Bradford did last year. I think he deserves every single opportunity to start and to give this team depth in their rotation. But there are injury concerns with basically everybody that I named. Actually, no, there is everybody that I named in that roster outside of Jack Leiter. And Leiter, while there aren't injury concerns, I still am not quite sure, though I am sold on his long-term future as a starter. Maybe it's more back-end guy rather than number 2 or number 3, like some of the hopes where the Rangers drafted him. But there are a lot of concerns with the health of deGrom, of Eovaldi, he's getting older, of Rocker. Who knows how many innings he's going to be able to go. Even if he's fully healthy and a full go, I don't know that you're going to see 180 innings from Rocker. I don't know if you're going to see 150 even. I think it might be 100 to 125 in the regular season because he is just going to be 1 year removed coming off Tommy John surgery. And the same thing can be said for deGrom and Mahle as well. There's 3 out of those first 5 guys that I named in the rotation are all 1 year removed. This will be their first full season after coming back from Tommy John surgery. None of them really pitched all that much this year. I mean, Rocker got around 50 innings, and I believe he was the most of all of these guys in terms of just the bulk load of innings that he put on this year. And it was, I don't think, even 50 from all the way to the Arizona Complex League to AA, where he made his AA debut and just lit the world on fire from that point on. I mean, how much are you expecting from these guys? So getting Eovaldi there, not only that, but you also get him as the mentor figure. Well, you're not paying him $25 million a year just to be a mentor. It's not just sentimental value. This guy has actual value at the top end of the Rangers rotation of providing this kind of depth, but also providing the kind of mentorship that, Rocker said basically the second start that he made, he'd been teammates with Nathan Eovaldi for a week, and he said, this is the best teammate I've ever had. Been a week. It's incredible. And you have these young pitchers, not just Jack Leiter, not just Kumar Rocker, the Vandy boys, but you also have Cody Bradford. You also have a lot of other young guys in this system that have really high pitching upside. Guys like Emiliano Teodo, guys like, Winston Santos, who might be a part of this rotation, might be part of this bullpen this year, like Alejandro Rosario, who I don't know if he's going to be in the big leagues this year, but he will be eventually, and he will be a starter, and I think he will be a really darn good one. He's also one that has a really nasty splitter, just like Nathan Eovaldi, who maybe he could teach a thing or two about how to make that splitter even nastier. And also, not to mention, if the Rangers go and get the guy who was not their top priority, if not Eovaldi, was their top priority this winter, in Roki Sasaki, and having him to come in and mentor Roki Sasaki. Some of the things that I've been seeing about Sasaki have been just really encouraging for the Rangers, specifically a tweet by Jeff Wilson earlier this afternoon. Now, Roki Sasaki's agent, Joel Wolf, was able to talk to the media about his client, the MLB media, I should say, about his client specifically, now that he was posted. This is the first time he's actually been able to do that, or at least talk to MLB media. He talked to Japanese media about all of that before. But one of the things that Jeff Wilson of DLLS tweeted out this afternoon said pretty interesting listen to Joel Wolf, agent for Roki Sasaki. Wolf says that a smaller market with a smaller media pool might be more to Sasaki's liking. He also said that Sasaki doesn't need a team with a Japanese mentor or be on the West Coast. Now, those things all together, very coded, very obvious language. The two favorites heading into this sweepstakes were the Dodgers, who most GMs assumed that Roki was going to sign with the Dodgers without even considering anybody else. Roki's agent said that's not true. Roki said that's not true. So that's the West Coast team. That's the big market team, who he said did not have a good experience with the Japanese media. Felt like he was being hounded, felt like he was being, not treated fairly, just being overwhelmed and bombarded with media, which I hate to tell him, but the Japanese media is going to be following him to the States no matter which team he plays for. Though, granted, if he does sign with the Dodgers, the amount of Japanese media covering Dodgers games might be, honestly, half of the population of Japan. It's going to be insane. I mean, the one game that I covered when Shohei Ohtani was at a Rangers game, there were, I think, probably 50 or 60, maybe that's over-exaggerating, but I think it was at least 50 media members that were from Japan, and there were maybe 20, 30, 40 from not Japan. I mean, it's insane the amount of media coverage that Shohei Ohtani alone gets, let alone now with Yoshinobu Yamamoto on his team, let alone you had a third Japanese star pitcher on that team. He would be unable to get away from it. And he doesn't need a Japanese mentor. Well, that Japanese mentor is obviously talking about Yu Darvish, who has been his mentor in the past, was his mentor as a member of Team Japan in the WBC, a guy who he has looked up to for a long time. Yu Darvish pitches on the West Coast as well for the San Diego Padres, who were probably rumored to be the second favorite to sign Roki Sasaki. And I talk about this on, I believe it was Friday's show of last week, maybe it was Thursday, but there were two different national media members that linked the Rangers as one of the favorites to sign Roki Sasaki. Jeff Passan mentioned the Rangers by name, literally a paragraph right after Buster Olney was saying, yeah, most of the front office members in baseball just kind of expect this to be a done deal, and eventually Roki is going to sign with the Dodgers, and everyone's going to be mad about it. But Jeff Passan said, no, not so fast. The Rangers are one of those teams you should definitely look out for. Everyone thought that Shohei Ohtani was going to go to either the Dodgers or the Cubs or the Mariners or the Giants even, and the Angels were not at all the favorites in that. And he said, don't be surprised if Roki Sasaki also signs with a team that kind of comes out of nowhere. Because he is not signing as a free agent, he is not really prioritizing the bonus pool money, whatever that is. The Rangers are going to be about in the middle of the pack with $6.5 million, but his agent saying, don't think about that. Don't worry about that. That is, such a small number compared to what you're going to end up making. It's not really going to make that much of a difference. It'll be $1 to $2 million of difference, and it'll be 1 year that will be a factor. He's saying he wants to prioritize a team with good pitching development, a place where he will go and thrive, a place where he's going to be in contention for years and years to come. And if the Rangers want to have some kind of pitching development, maybe having one of those elite mentors, maybe not a Japanese mentor, but just in general, great pitching mentor in Nathan Eovaldi around, it sure couldn't hurt. Having the guy who used to be Yu Darvish's personal catcher for a year in San Diego, in Kyle Higashioka, who the Rangers just signed, and also just so happens to speak Japanese, that sure couldn't hurt. Having Mike Maddox, who is one of the premier pitching coaches in the whole sport, that sure couldn't hurt. And with the Rangers, maybe not in just 1 year, but over the course of the last couple, with Chris Young in charge, changing a lot of the perception on their ability to actually develop pitchers, with the breakouts of Kumar Rocker, with the steps forward from Jack Leiter, with the breakout of Cody Bradford, and so many different guys in the minor leagues. The Rangers are not viewed as a team that just stinks at pitching development anymore. They're not. They're a team that, while they're not the Mariners, they're not the Dodgers, they're not even the Astros or the Guardians or the Rays, but they're doing much, much better at developing pitchers. And that's something that I think Roki will be looking at. And so this Eovaldi signing, not just helping for this year in him and on the field, it might be helping as a recruitment tool. But signing pitching isn't the only thing that the Rangers have to do. Signing starting pitching is not the only thing the Rangers have to do. So coming up, we're going to look at what else the Rangers need to do now that they have locked down their ace for the next 3 years, right after this. Now, the Rangers got priority number 1 done. Nathan Eovaldi is back with the Texas Rangers, but that's not the only thing they need to do. Before we get into what else they need to do, there's one little bit of news that happened today. The draft lottery for the 2025 MLB draft happened. The Rangers had the 7th best odds to get the number 1 pick, and that's the same odds that they had that when they moved up to the number 4 overall pick in the 2023 draft and selected Wyatt Langford. This year, we saw a bit of the draft lottery giveth, the draft lottery taketh away. The Rangers dropped all the way down to the 12th pick in the 2025 draft. A little bit less exciting. The class this year is not projected to be nearly as good as the 2023 class. There's nobody as good as Paul Skeens in there. I can feel very confident in saying that. I don't think there's anybody as good as Wyatt Langford in that class. Maybe there's somebody as good as Dylan Cruz or some of the other very good players taken in the first round of that draft, but just a little bit of news to touch on there before we look ahead at what the Rangers have left to do. Well, they got priority number 1. Get a top-line, front-end starting pitcher. Eovaldi preference, but if not, someone else will do. Priority number 2, fix that freaking bullpen. The Rangers fixed their bullpen, at least the very back end last year, with the additions of Kirby Yates and David Robertson. Now, those two are free agents again, along with Jose Leclerc, the Rangers' top 3 options. Now, the Rangers, Josh Spores is going to be out for the first couple months, if not the first 3 months, with shoulder surgery to fix the shoulder issue that really plagued him all year long. So the Rangers need a lot of guys in the back end of that pen to go, mainly free agents. They're going to have to sign at least, I think, one big free agent in the bullpen. I'm hoping for a Kirby Yates reunion. I think he might end up being more expensive than David Robertson, and I'm less sure that Yates is going to be great like I am Robertson. Robertson, the thing that I loved about him, the reason I didn't mind the Rangers spending was around $11 million last year on him, is that he has been so incredibly consistent, which is such a rare thing in a back-end reliever. I mean, that's why most of these guys are signing these one-year deals, because they end up going south a lot. That's why you don't see a lot of guys get a contract like Josh Hader, like maybe Tanner Scott will this offseason, which I would be terrified for the Rangers to go get him, because, again, every reliever, unless you're Mariano Rivera, they are subject to quite a bit of fluctuation. So the Rangers, maybe they're going to go a similar strategy like they did this past offseason of, buy low, take a few swings, a few bites of the apple, and hope that 2 or 3 of them end up working out. And this year, something the Rangers that will be able to do that they couldn't do last year is have some internal candidates that could step up. I did a whole episode on that a few weeks ago about internal Rangers pitching prospects who could jump up and be really darn good in the bullpen right away. I mean, Emiliano Teodo is one that comes to mind. Winston Santos could be one that comes to mind. Skylar Hales is always going to be a reliever, so there's not really any question there, and I think he will make his big league debut this year. Feel pretty confident barring some injury, and of course they have Mark Church, who made his big league debut on game 162 last year, him and his slider I think are going to be a big part of the Rangers bullpen this year. But the last thing the Rangers need, besides, if you can get a Roki Sasaki, that's not really a need at this point. I mean, it is for me personally. I want to watch the Japanese ace throw 100-mile-an-hour fastballs for the Texas Rangers alongside Kumar Rocker, having 2 homegrown-ish aces, 25 and under, alongside Jacob deGrom, and also Nathan Eovaldi. If 4 out of the 5-year rotation next year is Jacob deGrom, Nathan Eovaldi, Roki Sasaki, Kumar Rocker, I might legit have a heart attack based off of pure joy. But the last thing the Rangers need to take care of this winter, maybe the biggest issue remaining, the one that I do not think they can take care of internally, maybe they can, but they definitely need some reassurance here. They need another bat. They need a big bat, a big boy bat that hits the tarnation out of the baseball, because the Rangers did not do that this year. And bringing Nathan Eovaldi back alongside hopefully a fully healthy Jacob deGrom, Kumar Rocker, Tyler Mahle, and whoever else is in that rotation, that's good. That's necessary. That is a step towards competing. But if the Bats have another year in 2025 like they did in 2024, which I don't think they will, but I don't think you can count on everybody to bounce back, bringing in Jock Peterson, I think, is the last big move for the Rangers to make. Now, maybe they spend big money on a 1-year Kirby Yates deal. For a big money, I mean like maxing out, I think, at $14 million. But again, we're already seeing a lot of these projections are pretty low for how much these pitchers are signing for. I think mainly it's going to be the starting pitching that gets kind of crazy on the money, and the Rangers jumping in here. And all right, we know our guy. We know we get Nathan Eovaldi. It's going to be a little tough to swallow at times with $25 million a year for a guy who's going to be 35, 36, 37 in those seasons. But he's really darn good, and he means so much to this team. And letting him get away would be just a really, really bad look. But bringing in a Jock Peterson on a 1-year, maybe $16 million deal, this spending $25 million a year for Eovaldi makes me feel more comfortable that this team is going to target around $240 million for the payroll, still under the luxury tax, but only just, as opposed to way under the luxury tax. We've seen that number spitballed by people like Evan Grant, who have some real feelers for how the Rangers actually are going to go about things. It tied $220 million. Heck, even spitballed $210 million. If this payroll is $210 million, that's going to be... the Rangers, I don't think, would do anything else. If they don't sign anybody else, maybe they sign like one reliever, but they definitely wouldn't be signing about it if they're going to target $210 million for the payroll. I don't think that would be wise. I know I'd be really frustrated if that's all the Rangers do. If you sign Nathan Eovaldi, that means, okay, we are all in on competing. So getting a bat like a Jock Peterson, like a Randal Grichuk, those are really the main two that I think are my big targets. I mean, Grichuk is a guy who plays corner outfield. He plays it well. He absolutely annihilates lefties, but the Rangers specifically said they want a guy who can hit fastballs well and who can hit righties well. And Jock Peterson is that. He can hit fastballs. He can hit breaking balls. He can really hit the crap out of some righties. Not going to play a whole lot against lefties, and this lineup is already a little lefty heavy, but this has been one of the more consistent bats in baseball the last couple of seasons. He's coming off of a 151 OPS plus season, a 908 OPS. Heck, 2 seasons before that in San Francisco, it was his second All-Star appearance. He hadn't been an All-Star since 2015, and in 2022, his age 30 season with the Giants, he had an 874 OPS while in Giant Stadium as his home park. That is a hard thing to do. A 146 OPS plus. That is park adjusted. So lets you know how freaking hard. That is one of the most not hitter friendly ballparks in the country. It is just such a pitcher's park, and he crushed it there. And he crushed it in Arizona too. I think the Rangers might let him face some more lefty because his numbers overall weren't that bad in Arizona against lefties. Maybe the Rangers can get the most out of him. Maybe he'll end up playing, I don't think he'll play that much outfield. I think he'll mostly be a DH type, but this is that certified bopper in the lineup. This is the next thing, because Roki Sasaki probably isn't signing until after January 15th, so the Rangers will have time to make out the rest of their roster and then show Roki Sasaki, hey, this team is going to compete. I know last year we stunk, but we are the second most recent World Series champions. The other one is the Dodgers, and you can go do that if you want to. But this is the team that's going to compete for the long haul. We're going to have Wyatt Langford here for a long time. We're going to have Corey Seager here for a long time. We're going to have Marcus Semien here, and Evan Carter here, and Josh Young here for a long time. And oh, by the way, you'll get to go learn how to pitch from two of the one of the best pitchers of his generation in Jacob deGrom. You're also going to pitch alongside two other guys that are going to be hopefully a part of this rotation for his entire 6 tenures here in Kumar Rocker, in Jack Leiter. You can also talk to him about, guys like Alejandro Rosario. And look, also, by the way, the Rangers medical staff, having Dr. Keith Meister on there to try and help him stay healthy throughout his career. I mean, the Rangers have the makings of a very solid pitch to bring in Roki Sasaki. But even if they don't get him, even if they don't get Jock Peterson, bringing back priority number 1, Nathan Eovaldi, such a huge win for this offseason. Now, let's go make some other things happen, Chris Young, and make this yet another winter to remember. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.